devilishly above the rim of a garbage bin or from within a curbside pile of broken furniture. In the days and weeks following the revelations of the strings, those reeling from the truth had found different methods of handling the unwelcome chests that had intruded upon their lives. Some, choosing willful ignorance in the hope of attaining its promised bliss, threw away their boxes to avoid temptation. The melodramatic hurled them into rivers and lakes, or locked them away in a remote crevice. The more cavalier just tossed them in the trash. Still others attempted to obliterate the boxes in fits of rage, but these powerful chests, like the black box of an airplane, simply could not be destroyed, no matter how many times they were burned, or smashed, or violently trampled upon. Pedestrians who came across an opened box that had been left on the side of the road, or perhaps flung out of a nearby window, tended to avert their eyes and quicken their steps, as if passing by a panhandler whose gaze they wished to avoid. Luckily, Maura didn't see any abandoned boxes that evening as she approached the entrance to the school. The quiet brownstone-lined streets of the Upper East Side were either too genteel or too uptight for such a public display of emotion, she thought. Fitting for its locale, the building looked old and fancy, the architectural equivalent of an elderly philanthropist dressed up for a benefit. It had one of those elaborate pre-war exteriors that realtors love to point out, adorned with tiny gargoyles shaped like griffins. She walked up the wide interior staircase, past marble plaques quoting Plato and Einstein. Maura's fingers crept up to her face, touching the small turquoise nose ring she had worn since college that would surely violate the dress code of a place like this. Nina's younger sister, Amy, had taught at the school for several years now, but Maura had never stepped foot inside before tonight. She heard murmurs when she reached the second-floor landing and followed them to room 204. Thankfully, she was the last to arrive. Amy. Apparently, she had never finished atonement. Amy's arm was stretched painfully under her bed, fingers splayed, feeling for a pen that had seemingly rolled into oblivion when her thumb brushed unexpectedly against the spine of a book. She pulled out the paperback, covered in a light layer of dust, and saw that her bookmark, gold-plated and monogrammed, a gift from an ex-boyfriend that had long stopped reminding her of their brief intertwinement, still rested in the furrow between pages, 2/3 of the way through. Amy had been reading the novel back in March, and she couldn't believe she had forgotten about it. She had been so engrossed in the story. But she had nodded off that night, the night the boxes arrived, with the book sleeping next to her in bed, and in the commotion of the following morning the novel must have slipped off the duvet and into the past, a sudden relic of the days before. Amy held the book in her hands, remembering that morning. She had slept in late, as usual, a habit that her sister Nina never understood, unwilling to extricate herself from that night's reverie, no doubt inspired by her reading. In the dream, she was a student at Cambridge in the 1930s, courted by a young man who spoke like Hugh Grant, and Amy remembered feeling faintly disappointed to have woken up alone in bed. By the time Amy rolled off her mattress that morning, Nina had already left 2 panicked voicemails. She was only a year older than Amy, but had long deemed herself the voice of authority. "Call me as soon as you get this," Nina shouted into the phone. "Don't go outside yet, don't do anything, just call me first, please." Nina hadn't believed in the box's inscription, and wanted to wait until she had met with her news team at work. But the truth was, Amy wouldn't have looked anyway. These boxes had shown up everywhere, clearly powerful beyond belief. The world had somehow tripped and tumbled through the looking glass, and Amy had read enough novels to recognize that this was the part of the story where nobody knew what the hell was going on, where the characters made rash decisions whose consequences would only be revealed chapters later. Fortunately, the strings had arrived in the middle of spring break, so nobody at the Connolly Academy had to make the last-minute decision to cancel